Great power comes great responsibility, right? So when you start earning those money, that's also one thing you need to, I guess, focus on. Like, how do you spend wisely?
Allow me to welcome Mish to the Sweet Debt Proof Life Network.
Hi, thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for inviting me.
You've also talked to a lot of like guests in your podcast, which I'm sure my viewers will also be interested in like knowing more about. So I feel like pag tayo nag-usap tayo, nagchikahan lang tayo about like this budol shopping phenomenon right now, I feel like there are a lot of tips that they could really learn from. How has it been dealing with the whole personal finances since you've started earning and just working consistently for the past few years?
Same with adulting. It's gonna come with a lot of experiment, diba? When I started earning money, we're all human. We've been there. You're so happy. You have all this money from your hard earned money, and you want to keep spending, diba? So there was a phase definitely when I started earning money that I keep wanting to buy a lot of things. And then after a while, I learned na wait, I need to stop. I need to save because I also want to, I guess, save up for my future naman. So you gradually try to adjust your expenses versus your income, and then after a while I also like to travel, so I tend to budget. So that's where all these adulting stuff comes in, because you get to prioritize. So you need to learn how to budget. You need to learn what expenses would be, I guess, more important, diba? And right now, I guess, years into working and earning, I have my own system already on how I handle my own personal finances. And for me, I tried doing, tracking all the expenses for a while. But for me, kasi parang hindi nag-work yun. So I did it the other way around. So for me, it's more putting a budget or a target for by end of the year and just counting the whole net worth of it. Parang, okay, this is what I want to earn by the end of the year. And then I work my way through towards it. Because I don't like, parang that's one thing I realized along the way. I don't like feeling deprived. Parang, I don't spend, yun nga, di ba? Like what you said earlier, what's the point of saving all these money if you can't spend it, di ba? Or can enjoy your life? So it's, I think, finding that balance along the way, especially as you adult or you become, like, I guess, more mature. Yun eh. That's one thing I learned along the way. For me, I'm very comfortable with how I manage my personal finances right now. So when I receive my income, there's a certain percentage that goes to investment. There's a certain percentage that goes to savings. There's a certain, I guess, that goes to leisure, diba? All those things.
I like what you said about, at the end of the day, it's about priorities. Like, what do you really prioritize in your life? Kasi syempre, when you start working, you're like, get me that spending, like, let me shop to my extent.
Yeah.
Diba sa simula kasi, your priority is like, yung hindi mo pa nabibili since nung estudyante ka. And that's fine to start off with that, but it kind of helps you figure out na parang, at the end of the day, I don't really want to prioritize short-term gratification, like as you said, like traveling, like what about my future, like ultimately it's really realizing like what do you really want to prioritize in your life. And still, as you've also mentioned, like find a system that works for you, kasi for some people, if it works for them na track every single day, go ahead.
Why not, diba?
Diba? Like ako personally, I'm also not the kind of person because I also don't like the feeling of feeling deprived, diba? Kasi nga, if you're earning your money, then you just need to find really a system that, okay, you need to first prioritize putting aside for your savings, and then your investments, and then gora ka na sa mga expenses mo as long as you know, diba, na you're putting aside for your savings anyway. So I love that you brought that up. Speaking of like rewarding yourself and not depriving yourself, what are the best ways that you've found to reward yourself with your hard-earned money? Like, what are those, common guilty pleasures that you love spending your money on?
Food actually would be the number one. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who would keep buying like other like clothes or something. I used to, because parang growing up nasanay akong ganun eh. My mom just keeps buying me clothes parang after a while. But I realized kasi along the way that I don't really need a lot of clothes. I don't really need to keep, just buying whatever that's new, diba? For me talaga, one thing that I cannot resist is food. And quality food. So sometimes in Food Panda, yung Grab, like if you check my credit card bills, it's mostly those things, because that's, I guess, where I find pleasure in right now. But whenever I want something, because for example, like a bigger item, I would just put it as a milestone. Kasi ayokong, parang that's my way to tame myself and to be able to, I guess, tell myself you don't need that, or you shouldn't be spending randomly. So I just tie it to a certain milestone. Yun yung parang reward system ko na, for example, if I get promoted, I'll buy something. Or if it's a birthday, di ba? Parang ganon.
I love that because sometimes we forget na, okay, kunyari, for some people, you got a promotion, you got a bonus, pero parang gusto mo i-save na lang lahat. But then sometimes, that's kind of a tricky situation kasi eventually mag-relapse ka kasi parang you've been depriving yourself for so long. So it's really important to it's a nice way of putting it na parang, okay, when you hit a milestone, let me reward myself, diba? Wag naman ubusin yung savings, but at least, you have something that you're eyeing for. What I also like talking about is have a wish list. Para pag nagkapera ka, you're like, okay, you know what, I always wanted to buy, say, my own laptop. Okay, now that I have enough salary and let's say bonus, go, let's do it, diba? Para at least you don't feel like you're, let's say, constantly spending on clothes, tapos wala ka na natira for like the purchases that actually matter to you.
I was gonna say, I like that you mentioned bonus because I'm the kind of person when I receive my bonus naman, parang I tend to just like really either invest or save it. And if I want to reward myself, I'll allocate a certain percentage lang. So that's one thing. I guess if you don't want to spend the whole thing, or if you don't want to totally deprive yourself, find that right percentage and stick to it. You have to make sure that whatever system you've imposed to yourself, it has to be consistent.
I also like what you said about the percentages. I also do that. Like, okay, kasi for example, there was a time when I was working on building my emergency fund, gusto ko na siyang ma-hit on a certain month. Sakto, alam ko pag kunyari, December, November, may bonus ka. So, pinlot ko na okay, by that time, may makukuha akong bonus, so I'll be able to hit my savings target. But then, at the same time, I will reward myself with skincare, mga ganyan. Kasi you want to strike that balance. So, speaking of, I have a comment here wherein she said, kilala niya ako. I know Nik said she had come from a place where she was a shopaholic. Yep, no shame in that. So sabi niya, I was wondering, what piece of advice would you give to those starting out with work and are excited to spend a lot of money so they can get started on the right foot that early?
I think it's normal because I've been through that. Like what I said nga, diba? Parang I when I was a fresh grad, and even actually when I was receiving my allowances, mabilis mo ako mabubudol sa mga kung anong ibebenta mo. Kasi I'm the kind of person like those cute stuff, yung mga ganun, yung mga basta, minsan walang kwenta pero parang cute siya, gusto kong bilhin. Parang alam mo yun, I mean, I've been through that. And I guess a part of me, even until now, still buys some of those, pero not as often as before. I think, even though, when you're starting, kasi it really depends where you're coming from. We got to face that there are people who are not as privileged, and that's the reality of it. Because if you really need to start saving money, help your parents out, or pay some bills, you really don't have that luxury to spend on random things. But let's say you do have that privilege, or you have that luxury to keep those money for yourself. And to me, people do this. I find no shame into it, and I think it's okay to do it. Just buy something out of your first paycheck. Diba? Not the whole thing, right? I mean, just a certain person, just to remind you, again, going back to this is my own I guess mindset. Milestones. It was your first paycheck, diba? Your first hard-earned money. So I think it's fine as long as you don't keep repeating it every month. Kasi a first paycheck is a first paycheck. After a while, you need to start saving and you need to start budgeting.
Exactly. Like I love that you pointed that out, that at the end of the day, like you want to feel like it's a celebration. Like you've worked so hard in like your school, and like syempre when you feel that first paycheck, gusto mo maramdaman na okay, like finally I will be able to spend on something. So for me, I remember, okay, nung time na when I started working, I actually told myself, you know what, for 6 months, like I don't want to super like be strict on myself about saving. Kasi nga ako naman, I came from a family na even though we had a well-off family, my dad was the type of person na like, if you want something, you save up for it. Even if we can afford it, may allowance ka, then make do with your allowance. We're not gonna buy it for you. So that's why I think it's important for you to realize na, okay, when you're starting to work, parang it's okay to be excited to spend your money because it's your money. Finally, diba? And that target of yours, if I may ask, like, is it like what's your benchmark in setting that target for yourself that you feel like it's challenging enough, pero I'm gonna work hard to meet that?
this is gonna be very math heavy, but I'm just gonna run you through it quickly on how I work on it. So you can't set impossible targets, right? So you have to work on a
Mm.
target that you already parang based on your existing income and possibly earning other income at the side, diba? So existing income and what you have on a take-home basis, you just basically remove what are the required ones. Yung mga hindi mo talaga matatanggal, your rent, for example. You can't haggle that because you really have to pay your landlord. Your, I guess, a portion of your food, diba? Yung reasonable food, not the splurging food. Basics muna, I guess, necessities. Diba? The water, the utility, all the utility bills. Just basically remove those necessary expenses. And then you're free to have, technically free to spend. So free to spend or free to save, diba? So that pile. And then from that pile, I then multiply it by, let's say, the X months of the year, right?
Mm.
So that's I guess that's the possible amount, maximum amount I could save given everything I have to pay off, my bills, my utilities. And then from there, I shave off some, right? Kasi imposible man di ako gagastos. Siguro a few percentage that are really meant for me to spend on like possibly replenishing clothes or other things na luxuries in life, little luxuries that I have in life. So yun, so it comes from that. And then dun ko nilalagay yung target na yun for the year.
Mm-hmm. What you've shared is basically the basic concept of having an emergency fund, right? Because at least you know, like, in the next 6 months, makatira ka pa rin sa pinagrentahan mo, makakakain
Yeah.
ka pa din. Diba? Like, because you never know, like, I mean, nowadays, like, the pandemic is an example of, like, unforeseen circumstances. That's why I also advocate for having an emergency fund. Kasi that's when, what you basically said, you compute, like, ano yung living expenses mo, and ideally, you can include there at least contingency kung gusto mo naman mag-food panda, mag-take out,
Yeah.
hindi mo feel na para kang nakasakal sa sa day-to-day life mo. So at least, if for example, you want to change careers in corporate, if you want to
Yes.
try a new business, try a passion project, if it would mean that maybe you need to take a pause first, at least meron kang emergency fund, meron kang savings for you to feel like you have freedom to change your mind, to take risks in life, because that's the point of being an adult, is have that freedom, have that independence. So start off tayo ng mga maganda nating tips. I also want to ask, can you share those moments when you felt like you gave into budol shopping? Because I have my share, but I wanna hear yours.
Madami naman. I mean, we're still human. Lalo na tong pandemic you mentioned, 'di ba? It's even harder to resist budol shopping right now. Kasi before you actually need to go out to actually buy something. Online shopping wasn't common. Now you just go to Lazada, go to Shopee, go everywhere. You could just immediately buy anything and deliver it straight to your house, hassle-free, 'di ba? All you need to do is pay.
Mm-hmm.
'Di ba? So it's really hard. So over the course of this pandemic, I did upgrade a lot on my desk setup. It's because I work from home, 'di ba? So yun yung pinaka-budol ko siguro for this whole pandemic. I started like I guess upgrading, buying a new desk, buying well, to be fair, nasisira kasi talaga siya. So nasira yung keyboard ko. I bought a new keyboard. But yung keyboard naman na I bought is a bit more expensive or quality compared to like those regular keyboards. So that's where the budol comes in because I could have bought something cheaper, 'di ba? Changing all the stuff that I've been doing. I did podcasting pa. So, alam mo yun, there's a lot of those things that I've bought sa Lazada. So, Lazada is a very big culprit of this whole budol shopping. And I've been succumbing to it the past year, given this pandemic. Kasi nga, it's so easy, di ba?
It's ultimately dependent on your discipline, di ba? Kasi parang, it's up to you, are you gonna give in or not? And what I always also share is like whenever you're like struggling or in the middle of like, should I spend on this, should I spend on not, put your money where your values and goals are. For example, like for you, your podcasting is very important to you. Then of course you want to invest on good equipment, right? But like for instance, kung hindi ka naman magiging makeup artist, baka di mo kailangan ng 10,000 eyeshadow palettes, diba? Because I'm talking to myself. That's because before, like, if you're not clear on your goals, if you're not clear on like, okay, where do I see myself, in the next year, 2 years? Kasi if you don't have that clarity, you get lost on like the unnecessary purchases na satisfying you at the moment, but then in the long term, you're like, shucks, ano nangyari sa pera ko?
I like what you said about goals kasi that's really what's important. I think for me, I started being more deliberate. I started saving up more when when I started keeping track of my goals. Because I have a small journal putting like my milestones. I'm the kind of person who keeps tracks and write goals down for like a short term, mid term, and long term. So what is a short term, mid term, long term? A 1, 3, 5 year plan. Syempre, for example, let's just say if I want to hit a seven figure savings for the year, you have to be more like conscious about it, diba? Because you know na parang if you need to save up that much, you also need to spend less, diba, to get to that. And because you have that direction, it's clear now, diba, on why you want to spend, where you want to put your money, and where do you spend your money on, diba? So
Now, what do you think are the best lessons you've learned coming from now knowing that you can really find ways to resist budol shopping or impulsive buying?
one of the bigger realizations or lessons I've had over the past few years, like working through that, whether I buy it or not, whether I should resist this or not, is really knowing that if I really need it, like I like what he said. I like what he said. When you just have that wish list of what you want to buy, because pag binili mo yon, it was really part of your wish list. So alam mo talagang you've been saving up for it, you're really rewarding it. Hindi siya yung random thought that parang okay to, gusto ko siyang bilhin. 'Di ba? Parang it's not outside of the budget. It's not so an impulse. One realization that I have really is because I have that list, because I'm able to like say na parang this would help increase my productivity, this would really help me. I really need this. This is not a want. Those things, when I buy something, and kahit sabi natin budol siya, at that point in time, may gamit talaga siya sa akin, and I don't regret buying it. Versus those things before na parang I give in, and then I realize di ko pa na siya kailangan, sayang lang yung pera ko. It could have been used for another item, diba? Or another useful item. Lazada and Shopee are not making it easy for you. You do 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4 every single month there's a sale, diba? So if I want something, I put it in my cart, and then if I'm not sure, I wait for another month. Sure naman ako may sale pa rin next month, di ba? So if I don't buy it ng 7-7, I'll wait for 8-8. If I still like it by then, I probably will still like it by 9-9. So might as well buy it. If I don't like it anymore, and oftentimes you won't like it already after a month, then wala na.
One of the similar things that I teach my clients also is like delay. We are so mesmerized by the sale, the new thing, na parang we're like, I need this right now kasi baka stressed ka, baka you're in an emotional state, you're PMSing, and you feel like when you buy this thing, it will make you feel better. But like, ikaw nga, like you were able to say, you know what, save for a month. Ako nga, I could just say like 5 to 7 days eh. If you can do 1 month, better even, diba? Kasi nga, sometimes like if you can sleep through it for 7 days without checking reviews, without checking social media, and you still want it, then okay, then maybe it's meant to be for you. And maybe sometimes masasakto mo pa sa sale, edi all the better. Since we are in the Sweet Debt Proof Life network, for you, what does it mean for you to live the sweet debt proof life?
For me, that means, well, apart from the fact that I don't have any debt, kaya nga debt proof, really just being able to have that excess cash where I could spend on things I want without worrying about my savings or investments. I think for me, that's the sweet spot. Alam mo yun, na parang you're at that point na parang, okay, I can spare a few thousand, a few hundreds for this month just to spend on other things. And useful things, and going back to that, without worrying about whether, paano na yung bills ko next month, di ba? Cash siya ba? Really, kasi that idea of not having any debt is important, because that basically means you're only spending within your means.
As you mentioned, like having that excess cash, like that excess cash could go into your dreams that actually like excite you, that are more rewarding than any other item that you wear, that you put on your face, that you put around your desk. Like, what are those dreams that you're willing to spend your excess cash on? Ultimately, that will motivate you to consistently save and like invest. So thank you so much for bringing that up.